All right, Gemini. Interesting pull. And I feel like it has to do with both. I think this has to do with your choices and plans, but I think it also has to do with people that are around you. So from Lay Vampire, faith, trust, unwavering, and confidence, and then vanity from Chakra Wisdom. When you're looking at faith, it talks about having faith returned to you. But it also talks about if you have lost faith in a person, project, or humanity itself, it's saying that you can examine the source of the faith now and choose where you place this faith. But with vanity being there, I wonder if some of you haven't lost faith in a person, or you're trying to find that connection and that faith again in someone. Because when you're looking at vanity, it does talk about people. It talks about feeling disconnected from people in your life, growing away from limiting relationships, lesser companions, empty conversations, right? But now, as far as choices and plans go, all right, here's your overall for the week. Temperance. And I like this one because it shows, you know, the alchemy behind it, right? The combining of two elements to create a third. But it's really about, you know, you needing to balance out what is going on within you. You know, your thoughts, your feelings, the actions you're planning on taking here. I don't think that this is about being patient with a situation. But I think it's more important for you right now, especially with this being the overall, to keep yourself balanced and in check almost. Oh boy. All right. So in the past, the Two of Cups. So could possibly be talking about a relationship. Could be any relationship here. But, you know, I look at Temperance and think at one point you and another person, you know, were connected. You know, you felt like you were seeing things the same way, feeling the same way about things. But is that changing now? You know, because of Temperance being there? Are you being asked now to kind of like chill out and not let things get out of control? You know, because I think of you needing to get that balance, needing to keep your equilibrium when it comes to something that may be going on with a connection. In the present, the Queen of Cups. You know, possibly dealing with the water sign, but you guys know how I feel about that. You know, whoever the person is around you, I think with the Queen of Cups for you, this is you feeling something different. You know, there's something else going on with the way that you're feeling about a connection here. And it doesn't have to be a bad thing, right? But like, whoever it is that you're dealing with here, you know, I think that you're more emotionally in tune with the way that you're seeing things. They may not be, you know, but you're being asked here to keep yourself in check. You know, no matter who you're dealing with here. But we'll see. Oh boy, future conditions. And, you know, and that's what I'm talking about with Temperance being the overall. Whoever it is that you're dealing with, obviously there's an emotional connection. Because with the Queen of Cups, like I've always said with her, right? There's emotional attachment, involvement in a connection, in the way that you're seeing things, right? You may feel like you're more emotionally in tune, but are you getting a little obsessive with your point of view, or are they? You know what I'm saying? Because when I look at the Five of Wands, I mean, you know, you see it, right? The tug of war going on. And it's pointless. It's pointless. You know, you each have your own point of view on the situation clearly here. But going back and forth is going nowhere. And again, you're being asked to, you know, keep yourself balanced here, keep yourself in check. Like I keep hearing that. Don't blow this out of proportion. Don't make it worse than what it already is. You know, I don't know that there's anything that you can do right now to get back on the same page with another person. You know, and is it because they're emotionally out of whack, or is it about you feeling that way because of the person that there was a connection with? Wow. Your best path to follow. Now, you know, right? Like, I'm telling you. And obviously there's a connection here. No matter what relationship we're talking about here, whether we're talking about romantic, friends, family, clearly at one point you two saw eye to eye. You know, but whatever is going on emotionally with the two of you is getting you nowhere. With the King of Cups being your advice, it's telling you that you need to keep your emotions in check. Right? Because the King of Cups, there's that level of wisdom there. The Queen gets emotionally involved. He knows better. He's still very loving and very supportive, absolutely, but he doesn't allow his emotions to get out of control, or he doesn't become overly invested in the emotional problems of others, right? You got to keep your emotions in check when it comes to dealing with this person. Because things are escalating, obviously, here in future conditions, but it could get a whole lot worse. Wow. Oh, shit. All right. In your environment, the Three of Swords, somebody's hurt. Somebody feels betrayed. Somebody feels disconnected from the connection. Okay? So with the Queen of Cups being attached to that, is it because they're emotionally out of whack? Or like I said, is it you? Because your advice is telling you, keep yourself chill out, right? Like, don't blow this up. But clearly here, somebody feels hurt with the Three of Swords being in the environment. I feel like this is going to have to do with the person that you're dealing with right now. I think that there is a part of you that is still very, open and loving to them. But, they may have hurt you one too many times, or they may have done something that really hurt you that led to, this kind of conflict of, that's not my intention. You're not understanding. No, how am I supposed to take that? Like, I can hear the back and forth going on, but you both, like, respectively feel like you're right for saying what you needed to say. Wow. Gemini, what the hell is going on? And because the Two of Cups is kicking this off, right, you can flip the script on this, whether we're talking about you or the other person that you're dealing with. But yeah, somebody feels hurt, betrayed. Your hopes and your fears, the Hangman. And for you, I feel like you're hoping that the other person is going to see the different perspective. But because they may not be, because of the Five of Wands being future conditions, it may be holding things up, right? Because I look at the Hangman and I feel like being bound to a situation, trying to see a different perspective, trying to have that enlightenment, break through to you or possibly to the person that you're dealing with. But it's holding up the show, and like I said, for you, I feel like the hope would be that they see it. They see that different perspective. They set aside their ego, right? But you can't, and I don't think that you are. I don't think that you're trying to force somebody to see things your way. But because they're not opening up to a different perspective, it's almost got you on the same kind of path, where you're just going back and forth and it's nonsense. And it makes sense, like I said, that Temperance is the overall here. And then coming out, the Eight of Wands, I think, especially with the Five of Wands being there, that, if you want to act on this and do the right thing to kind of close this situation out, you're going to have to send out that communication and leave it be, is what I feel like you're looking at the Eight of Wands. I mean, definitely we could talk about things changing really quickly. But, I look at this and I think sending out that communication, right? But whatever it is that you're saying here isn't actually closing out the situation, because that's the whole point of the Eight of Wands, right? Getting everything lined up so that we can finish something here, right? Knowing when to act to have this situation end, knowing what you need to do this. But then I also feel like I said, that the sending out of communication, but it's not working though. And that's the thing, I don't know that anything is actually going to move forward on this. Okay. So when we're looking at the Empress, especially with the Queen of Cups, for some of you, it could have to do with, the mother figure in your life, a significant female, right? Which is possible here. But, in terms of the Empress, though, I look at this and I feel like, this was an abundant relationship, right? At one point, there was happiness. There was a connection. There was a sort of like fulfillment with the relationship. But things change because somebody is hurt here. Now, with the star being connected to this, and looking at the Eight of Wands, and again, with Temperance being the overall, I think that, you are trying to do what is right here to get everything just out in the open and let's close this situation up, because you're not getting anywhere, right? And with the star, we're talking about healing. You're again talking about balance, needing to wash yourself clean of this situation, you know, and you needing to kind of go with the flow. But I feel like it's you wanting to have hope, wanting to have faith that, you know, things will go better. But then with the Seven of Cups coming out, it's like somebody is not seeing the possibilities here. You know, I think that there's too much emotional attachment to a specific outcome. Now, this could definitely be about you, right? Like, how do I say this with the Seven of Cups? I don't think it's about options. It's about the way that you're viewing the outcome. You know, and I go back to Temperance and think you got to keep yourself in check here, because if you're expecting a certain outcome, it's not going to work out that way, you know? But the problem is it's not just you, it's the other person though too, you know? I mean, it's like you guys have your own way of viewing a situation, your own outcome that you think should happen, but nothing actually happens here, and that's my problem, right? But I look back at the star, especially with these here, and I feel like for you, you just need to be clean of the situation. I need to be cleaned of it now, you know? You know, and I go back to the Five of Wands and look at this and think, communication clearly is way off. You both have your own point of view on this, but you're not hearing each other. It's just not happening. And it's because there's not, you know, a whole lot of realistic expectation when it comes to an outcome with this. You know, neither one of you are choosing the right path or choosing the right thing. You know, but you are being the one, or you are the one being asked here to, you know, keep yourself balanced, keep yourself in check, right? Which may be hard, especially with that Three of Swords there. I would say to you that, you know, whatever expectation you have on an outcome for this situation, get rid of it. You know, don't just get rid of it. There's no point. You know, if you really want to have this situation healed or corrected or at least balanced out, say what you need to say and leave it alone. You know, say what you need to that's going to help get this situation to a close. Because that's what I feel like looking at that Eight of Wands. Because, you know, the both of you are kind of holding up the show here. But like, I understand with the Three of Swords being there. So when we're talking about unique gifts, whatever it is that you feel like is your unique gift is going to help you move the situation forward. But your unique gift may be your ability to look at things from a perspective of gratitude, being grateful for having this person in your life, being grateful, you know, for the experience, whether it's positive or negative here, because it still has the potential to grow, right? And what are the possibilities once you open up to gratitude, you know? But again, whatever expectations you have, you got to get rid of them when it comes to an outcome with this. And be open to all the possibilities here on how things can change and be better. Treasure your loved ones. It's important to love others deeply. I'm telling you, once you come from that place of gratitude, everything changes. You know, be grateful for the people that you love, right? But be compassionate. When you look at compassion, it talks about when you're dealing with people where you don't understand what they're doing, you know, instead of looking at them in hate or misunderstanding, have compassion. Look at them with compassion, because they may not know how they are feeling and they may not understand how they are acting right now, right? Like, one of the things that I talk about is, for me, when I'm doing readings or when I'm doing personal readings, I come from a place of compassion because we're all stuck in the meat suit. And that's how I look at it. So every situation to me, you know, I don't look at a person's situation and think that that's, you know, silly, you know, it's not important, right? Like, I never feel that way. I always feel like every experience, you know, holds weight for that person. And all I can do is come from a place of compassion, right? Because we're all stuck in the meat suit. But wow, Gemini, you're really being asked to keep yourself in check with this one. And it may be difficult here. And whatever hurt is going on, you know, it doesn't have to be the end. But the fighting does need to come to a close. But get rid of those expectations, especially if you want the situation to be, you know, cleansed.